Misconceptions.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to another episode of Nephilim Death Squad. I am David Lee Corbo, a.k.a. The Raven. That is Top Lobsta, the father of disinformation. Before we get into today's guest, which is an episode long in the making, one that I had hoped to do for some time, and I'm really pumped that we are able to finally do it. But before we get into all of that, don't forget, guys, patreon.com/Nephilim Death Squad is where you're going to want to go if you want to support us, and we will be going live there exclusively around the half-an-hour mark. All kinds of perks wait for you over there. Ad-free viewing experiences, early access to episodes, first dibs on tickets from Bohemian Grove or to Bohemian Grove. And right now we're looking at the first Friday and Saturday in March. So we're closing in about 5 months away. If you want those tickets, you're going to want to be on patreon.com/Nephilim Death Squad. Plus a little discount code off of merchandise from toplobsta.com. All kinds of goodies are over there as well. Let's pick one to highlight. Can we do the Florida Illuminati? I think it's a really...
Honestly, yeah, I like this one.
I like that one. I like the Florida Illuminati.
It's a little misunderstood, but we have some fun with it.
It is. It's just when they accuse you of being a Fed or a plant or whatever, you just go...
You make a T-shirt about it.
I'm part of the FI, the Florida Illuminati. Joining us today, finally, after a long time, is Karin Wilkinson. Really happy to have you. Really important conversation we're going to get into today. But before we do all of that, let's tell people where they can find you and what you're all about, Karin.
Well, thanks, guys. I am just so happy to finally make this happen and be on here with you guys. It's my honor to be here. Karin Wilkinson, you can find me at my website, KarinWilkinsonAuthor.com, social media, Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, under my name, Karin Wilkinson. There's a link tree on my Facebook page that will get you to all of the different sites, and I can send that to you guys to share as well. So if you do want to get in touch with me, please don't leave me a message on social media. I do not monitor those email boxes, but you can reach me through my website, and then I'll actually get an email from you, and I can get back to you. So I highly recommend that if you want to reach out to me. And the book is available at lamarzulli.com.
You guys, Karin, over there with
LAMarzulli.net.
.net. Oh, that's
both.
right, yeah.
Yeah, it's at both .com and .net. We have fixed that, so now you can get there either way.
Okay, perfect.
The work that you guys are doing over there with LA, it's you, Vicky Joy Anderson, L.A. Marzulli, hugely important, especially when it comes to kind of this deception that's being pushed right now. And I kind of wanted to start this conversation off with your story. And you know, you've had some personal experience with this phenomenon that a lot of people are only speculating on from the outside looking in. And I was on X, formerly Twitter, recently, and there was a post that was going viral. Actually, it was from a very popular show, the Danny Jones Show, out here. I think he's in Florida. And, you know, so-called expert, which I don't know what it means to be an expert these days, but, you know, is saying that he believes he understands what this abduction phenomenon.
To be an expert, you just have to say that you're an expert.
That you have to be bold enough to state it. Yeah.
We're experts.
We are experts. And so what he says is that the phenomenon, the UFO alien abduction phenomenon, in his estimation, is actually completely psychological. There's no aspect of it that takes place in physical reality whatsoever. And that this is simply the universe giving the individual a fear test, which was incredibly reductive, in my opinion, in my expert opinion.
Mm-hmm.
And it was going viral to the tune of millions and surely would have been seen by millions. And I said, that is just, it's a shame. It's a lack of information. And I know, or I assume that you disagree with much of that, Karin. So if you could kind of, for the audience's sake, I'm very familiar with you. I'm happy to say that I'm very familiar with Karin's work. But for the audience, let's talk a little bit about your experiences.
Yeah, unfortunately, we do hear that a lot, and we've heard that from many other so-called experts in these fields. that this is all psychological. And that's a shame, because we have the physical scars to prove what's happened to us. Those of us, speaking for myself and others I've spoken with personally, who've experienced these unwanted seizures, these unwanted encounters. And so it's really unfortunate. I mean, our own government has released documents detailing the physical things that we have to deal with because of this. There are reports, hundreds of pages of documented physical evidence showing that we've experienced these things. It's not in our mind when we have physical reminders that we have to deal with every day. And our own government admits to that. They admit to the missing fetal syndrome. They admit to people being implanted with trackers, so many different things. And it's in the book. I have a chapter in there where I just put that document in there to share with people so they can see that this is really there. And then you have people in the hallowed halls of Congress saying, yes, we have the bodies, we have the crashed craft, we have the witnesses. And so when you take all of that, plus the hundreds and thousands of people who have had similar experiences but have never spoken with each other, but they're saying the same things, and you put all of that together, it really negates these outlandish theories that this is all just some psychological delusion. And we've heard that so many times. It's like victim shaming for those of us who've been through it, because it's really sad, because it's like, it unfortunately, they're trying to quiet those of us who are brave enough to speak about it and try to help others. And it's really unfortunate. So sorry, that's a long answer to your question. And I think you asked more just what my experience is, and I'll go back to that as well.
Well, I would like to just say that we had a gentleman on the show who I think is well-meaning. So many of us in this kind of area of research don't intend malice. We just kind of get things wrong, which is forgivable. And I really enjoyed that episode, but it was something Joe. Geez, man, I forget his name now. He was
was he the guy that was just on Tony Merkel's show?
He was, yeah.
Joseph Jordan.
Joseph Jordan, yeah. Great guy.
He has long been, unfortunately,
wrong.
He's that up. Yeah.
Well, what is he?
So what he specifically said on our show, which is, we don't give a lot of pushback on the show. We'd let people share their piece, and we're just kind
let them lie.
We just let them lie to us.
We try to massage the conversation, obviously, because we just had Jordan Crowder on.
Jordan Crowder, yeah.
Didn't agree with much he said, but there are you can derive some good information from somebody.
Sure.
You don't always have to fight them.
It's really like what we do is data harvesting in very many ways. We're just taking in information. And so one of the things that Joe said was that, sometimes women will just absorb the fetus, and there will be no traces of it whatsoever. And that this alone is enough for him to dismiss the idea that there are ever any actual, physical pregnancies, that this phenomenon is taking place whatsoever. This is something that I disagreed with, but like I said, I think he's just wrong, and I can't really fault people for being wrong. But
he's right. That's the thing. He's right about a lot of other ththings. I think he's one of the first people we spoke to that said when you use the name of Jesus,
yes,
it deters these figures. Whereas others will talk to a Timothy Alberino. He's like, no, that doesn't work. And I'm like, I don't know. It's not really what I've heard.
Yeah. MUFON, former MUFON investigator is what he is. And so he had that data that correlated with the name of Jesus Christ stopping abduction experiences. So he, I believe, is a guy that would also maintain that this is purely a spiritual. In fact, what he says is a spiritual phenomenon masquerading as a physical one. What do you think of that, Karin?
Yeah, I think you have to be really careful when you get into that, because what we're dealing with are entities that are different from us. They are not human. They are multidimensional. They are interdimensional. They have properties, physical properties. They have properties of physics that we don't understand, that we can't yet explain. So when you try to fit it into this little box of we are human, we are here on Earth, it doesn't fit. And so then you provide these explanations that seem logical somewhat, but they really don't work, because we're not dealing with human entities. We're dealing with something that God created before he created humans. We're dealing with what Tim Alberino calls our elder brethren. We're dealing with entities that we don't have a lot of information on, but we also know we're not supposed to mess with them. So, we know they're stronger. We know they've been around longer. We know that there's more to them than there is to us when it comes to abilities. And so you have to be really careful to make such absolute statements unless you've actually experienced it or been there or done this. So, while some of those statements have some truth, there is also some mistruth or misunderstanding going on. And it is very hard for those of us who've experienced it to listen to people who haven't tell us what's going on when we've been there and we've experienced it. And I know the difference between something that's physical and spiritual, and it is both. And it can be both at the same time. And now we're getting into quantum physics. And if you look at the Bible and you look at the Father and the Son and the Holy Spirit, and you look into quantum physics, it helps bring a little bit of that more into focus. And if somebody does not understand that, then of course they're going to try to explain it in a way that's a little more simplistic. And then you come back to those types of explanations, which you were just talking about.
One of the questions that I always have is it's like a definition or a delineation between what we're actually dealing with. So you have like fallen angels, Nephilim, Raphaim, and then Gibberim. Like as the time goes on, the bloodline gets diluted, and some of these entities are even like a Gibberim would be a created entity or something. Like a Nimrod became Gibberim, so he was human and then became something else. Do you have any inclination of what you've been dealing? I guess we should get into your story before we even jump the gun on it. But like, do you have any idea what you're even dealing with, the classification, or do you think it does it matter at all in what's happening?
I think that there are going to be a lot of various classifications that we don't have enough data on to fully understand. But what we do know is that God created another class of beings, not human. And how many different types there are? Well, we know biblically there are so many different types that are mentioned in the Bible. So when those entities, as in Genesis 6, saw the daughters of Ben and decided that they wanted to procreate and take wives, plural, of as many of them as they chose, you get into creating the hybrid entities, and there are going to be different names for that across different cultures. And so different names and different types, there are probably more than we could imagine when it comes to that, because we don't know how many types of angelic beings they are. We don't have a book for them. We have a book for us. We have a book about our salvation, but we don't have a book about these entities. So most of what we would say would be, well, this is what I've seen, so I can tell you what I've experienced and what I've seen. But beyond that, a lot of it is speculation, unless we're just going straight from the biblical verse or other ancient texts.
So let's get into this, what you've experienced. And I guess we can kind of start chronologically. It seems that a lot of this, for many people, starts very early on. My grandmother was an abductee victim, and she didn't realize it until much later on in life, and it disturbed her pretty deeply. But the stories from her childhood, trying to go to sleep, being unable to move, bright white light appears in the window. She finally, gets the ability to scream. And once people come to investigate, the thing disappears. It seems like this is something that followed her throughout childhood. Not unique. I mean, you might say that the abductee victim is unique in the grand scheme of things among the general population. But as far as the patterns and the things that happen, it seems that it was kind of par for the course. So is this something that started for you in childhood?
Oh, absolutely. From my earliest memories. I mean, I don't have a time in my life where I don't have memories of this, of being taken against my will, of encountering these strange entities that I didn't understand from such a young age, that there were family members. My father's side is very Germanic, very Scandinavian looking. And I was terrified of certain members of the family who were very tall and blonde and fair skinned and blue-eyed, because they reminded me of these entities some would call Nordic entities. And at the time, I didn't know what they were. I just knew they were taking me, and these were some of them that I was encountering looked similar to some of my family members. And I'm not saying the family members were alien. No, I'm just saying there were similar features that, as a little child, when you're 2 or 3 years old, you don't know the difference between a bumblebee or a wasp, but if you're stung by one, you're probably scared of both. It's that kind of thing. So from my earliest memories, and then, later in life, when books like Whitley Strieber's book came out, when I saw that book cover, I had a panic attack. I'd never seen something like that on book cover before out in public, and what do you do? What do you say when you see something like that? People are like, what's wrong with you? Nothing, I can't tell you. People will think you're crazy. No one wanted to hear those types of things. But growing up, from my earliest memories, yeah, I was taken, and we didn't have vocabulary. I didn't know what UFOs and aliens and interdimensionals and grays or things like that. Nobody talked about those things. There weren't TV shows or podcasts or magazines or newspapers or books about those things. So it was very difficult. I can understand your grandmother's situation a little bit in reference to my own, because we didn't have a basis to even talk about it or understand what was happening to us, because there was nobody out there to help us understand better. There was nobody else out there talking about these things. And that made it really difficult to share and tell others what was happening at that point in time.
That book, by the way, Karin, is the one that my grandmother, that was what informed her of what was actually happening to her. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
And that's what she became very troubled after that. In fact, she made my mother swear not to read the book, and after she passed away, I managed to get my hands on it, and that framed a lot of what was happening. Not so much to me. There was some experiences I had, but like around my family, because I was getting these stories.
Yeah.
And so I'm looking at this book now, and I'm going, oh, this is what my grandmother was talking about, and then. So yeah, I guess it happens in a way where there's not a lot of, like you're saying, other sources. It kind of makes me wonder how impactful that book was for a lot of other people.
If you don't mind,
I didn't read it. I couldn't read it. I was terrified of it. I couldn't get close to the book. And then when it finally came out on, I think normal TV, not at the movie theater, it was on, and I couldn't watch it. I mean, it was on, and I had a panic attack. Some scene in the movie that happened to be on the TV, those things just bring back this PTSD element of the things that happened. And I can see how that would be alarming or shocking for her to read, because just the scenes from the movie were too much for me to watch at the time. I mean, now I'm in a much better place. Obviously, God has brought me through this and to another side of it where I can use it now to help others. But for a long, long time, I couldn't look at a movie or a book or a TV show or anything that had UFO or alien in it just for that reason. It was too painful to relive any of it. And I do believe, as you were starting to say too, it is a very familial thing. It does run in families. I think that has a lot to do with the permissions that are given. Go back to Vicki Joy Anderson when I reference that, because when she and I speak about things together, that's where her expertise really comes in, as far as covenants and things like that. And when you have a family line that has the genetics that they are able to utilize for things like breeding programs, they're going to keep going with that family line. And especially, when that mother, I was talking to you guys earlier about something I'm writing this month about fetal maternal microchimerism, which is a long word for a simple process where when a woman is pregnant, the fetus transfers some DNA to the mother that stays with the mother permanently. That stays in the mother. So if you're having an experience with a non-human entity and carrying a hybrid entity in your womb, there will be some transfer of that DNA, and that stays in your system, and possibly making it easier to continue that lineage with that family line, because now that's a part of your DNA.
That's interesting. Is that how you think, like your relatives, let's say, that do have characteristics of these Nordics, do you think that happened sometime down the line?
Yeah, that's a really interesting question. I have no way to prove that or not. But what I can say is, because of this DNA, it takes the comments about this being a purely psychological thing and throws them completely out the window, because this is genetic proof that it's happening. So we're no longer stuck trying to fight this battle of, well, it's all in your head. It's not in my head. It's in my genes. It's in my blood. And so with the new findings that are happening, it was a Dr. Max Rempel released a study back early this year. I think it was May. And like I said, I'll send you guys a copy of the article when I finished it. And anyone who's interested in that can find it in Elliot Marzulli's monthly newsletter. and that'll be a part of my next book as well. I'm really going to focus down onto the DNA part of things, because I think that's so important for people to understand that there is so much more proof coming out, but no one's paying attention. You know, when these things come out, they're largely ignored as unimportant, or, you know, pushed aside because, well, for obvious reasons. Obviously, there's still such a stigma about this, and removing that stigma seems to be impossible at this point.
Well, I mean, the stigma surrounding that aspect of the phenomenon is, I would agree with you, seemingly difficult to remove, or difficult to, you know, get through for some people psychologically.
Mhm.
But we are being introduced to this concept of extraterrestrials in a way that seems to be palatable for the average person, and it seems to have been made palatable by apparatus like Hollywood and NASA and things like that for a really long time. And obviously it's not cohesive with what you and Vicky and LA are working on as far as your research goes. And so in that way, the deviation between what your ideas are and what the mainstream public is going to get soon, or is getting in a very slow drip, is specifically about the nature of the event. And by that I mean we're getting fed this idea that they are benign space brethren who have advanced technology, and who maybe even have a vested interest in our maintenance of the planet, not destroying it via nuclear, you know, war, or not polluting it to the point of you know, not being able to bring it back. And and there is a lot of things at play here. So it's not only this sort of Pentagon release thing, but it's also aspects like the Galactic Federation of Light, which I imagine you're probably familiar with, you know, given your field of research. And the Galactic Federation of Light very much paints these entities as saviors of mankind, waiting for humanity to reach an apex in their spiritual evolution so that they may be rescued from whatever satanic forces seek to keep us,
or reach the next level of whatever
spiritual advancement or something
Ascension.
like that. And so this goes everywhere. This is the Pleiadians, et cetera, et cetera. I've even seen them in recent years go as far as to co-opt Jesus to such an extent that, which we've seen with the New Age movement and everything, right?
Well,
Jesus
actually, that's very interesting, because tomorrow we have Joe and Franco.
That's right.
Who is the pastor that worked on the telepathy tapes? He's been on Blurry Creatures as well, but he's a pastor that works with autistic children that are nonverbal, and he claims that most of them, or a lot of them, have said that they've been in communication with Jesus. So they communicate with each other telepathically and maybe even astrally, and they go to a place called the Hill, and they come back and they talk about Jesus. Something also very interesting is that when he's on the telepathy tapes, like that whole podcast itself, those parts are cut out. So there's not really mention of Jesus on these tapes. They want to focus more on
Just the phenomenon.
the new age,
Yeah.
new agey kind of side of it. So we're going to do a little bit of scratching to see what we could find there from this guy.
But we're getting it from all different angles is what I'm getting at, Karen.
Yes.
It seems like there's a lot of damage control going on, and a lot of it is in direct opposition to what you're, as an actual experiencer, describing.
Exactly. I mean, you got to look at, there's so much predictive programming out there. There's so much of an attempt to try to steer people in a very specific direction with this. You know, and I know you've spoken with LA about things like the coming Great Deception, but as he talks about, you know, and when we go up, they show up. When we go up, they come down, is what he says. And I agree with him 100%. In the 1950s, George Adamski coined the phrase, our benevolent space brothers. And that, again, is just another part of this predictive programming. They're trying to show them as our benevolent, you know, space brethren who are here to help us and save the planet. But when I and LA and Vicky speak to people, we often say, you know, tell me, where is it okay to kidnap a 4 or 5 year old child? When is it okay to sexually assault a man or a woman? When is it okay to steal a fetus from someone's body? At what point is it okay to mutilate cattle, sheep, animals, people who are also mutilated? You know, at what point are destroying crops in fields? That's not preserving the land. That's not preserving the crops. With crop circles and things like that are bent and woven in such a way as would take us years to even complete one little tiny bit of that if a human were to do it. So there's just so much that doesn't fit into this benevolent Space Brothers package they're trying to sell to everyone. But people are still buying it because they want that feel-good story. They want this beautiful bright light to come down from the sky and save everyone. We have that. We have that in a Savior. We have that in Jesus. But people are calling on it with CE5 and opening doors and making covenants with entities that do not have their best interest at heart. I mean, when somebody comes along and says to steal your purse or rob your house or carjack you, they don't wear a t-shirt that says, hey, I'm here to rob, cheat, steal, lie, kill. No, they come in as this nice, respectable person or someone you could trust, or they sneak in where you don't see them. So evil doesn't tend to announce itself. And so in order to gain the permission, this evil is trying to find a way to look like something people might want, so people will invite it in. And it really is deception at the highest level when we start talking about Space Brothers, because people are not going to see the difference. They're going to see Satan coming as an angel of light and think that it's this wonderful, benevolent being. Just because it's beautiful doesn't mean it's a good thing. You know, and just because it helps you once doesn't mean the next time it's not going to hurt you. And it's just so dangerous. We have so many warnings in the Bible, so many warnings in our gospel to not mess with these things, but people don't want to pay attention to that because they want the fun, the excitement. They want to see the shiny object and they want to call it forth and have this, feel this strength and this power, I think, that they get from that. And that's a very scary thing for me, people out there doing those types of things like CE5, for example.
So some interesting things there that you said, like the concerted effort that we're all dealing with right now, watching them do this stuff. Part of it is the idea that we have to invite them in. So yeah, that, like, they have that part covered. I mean, social media or just like Hollywood from the 1950s to 70s, Roswell and that whole concerted effort. So yeah, that's covered the part where we have to invite them in. But I just wanted to drop a little information for you. Maybe you passed to LA. It's something that we kind of stumbled upon. We interviewed this guy, Citizen D, about a year ago. And he's a British, or I guess he's from Britain. I don't know.
I wonder what he does, like, occupational wise. Did we ever get that? He's just
no, because he's anonymous. We did.
That's right. He's anonymous. Yeah.
We didn't get to see him accidentally because he doesn't know how to work a computer. but he's anonymous, and
so he's not a computer. He's not a tech expert, is what we're saying.
No. He doesn't know how to use StreamYard. That's for sure. So he's one of the people that claims to have been doing crop circles, and he said about 80% of the crop circles that we do see are man-made. The other 20%, he's saying, you know, could be, could not be, which is a believable number. Not all of them are UFO craft that are interwoven, you know, articulately. But when we pressed him on it, we were like, so how do you get these designs? Because they're intricate designs. He was like showing us some of them, and he goes, some of them come as downloads, some people, like, there are a whole network of these guys that do this and coordinate to do this. And downloads seem to be one of the main things.
In the sense of channeling specific, like he's channeling these information downloads.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And then I go, I pull up like a picture of the Seals of Solomon, and I cut off the top really quickly, and I go, do any of these look like something you put in a field? And he goes, yeah, those, like this one, that one, this one. And I was like, that's interesting. Anyway, and we moved on. So I was like, you're putting demonic sigils in a location that you're being, we also asked him, like, why certain locations? He was like, yeah, it's just like you get an inclination to go here and do this
2
thing.
2:00 in the morning. 2:00 in the morning. It's just something just strikes me to go out and make this complex sigil in the middle of a field.
I think he
And
said
nothing about that bothers you, right? Yeah, no red flags there.
I mean, he said,
well, it was interesting because then we got into, like, after that, we go, anything happening in your real life that's a little weird? He's like, man, sometimes some poltergeist stuff, but I don't think it's related. We're like, yeah,
just
never
some
mind.
poltergeist activity.
It's probably not related. Don't worry about it.
I haven't drawn a correlation. the other thing that's really interesting too is this idea of Stephen Greer, because you're talking about CE5.
Yes.
That guy is really strange to me. I guess if you don't have anything nice to say, I won't say anything else.
Like how he looks, or just what he
just
does.
super. Yeah, he does look very horrifying. So, but he has this app, and it's CE5, and we had a buddy of ours, because we do quite a bit of research on frequency and vibration and things of that nature, and the CIA has a real interest in it. Seems to be able to sync the hemispheres of the brain and give you these experiences or put you in contact. You can channel easier, et cetera, et cetera. It seems like it's the gift that keeps on giving if you're the CIA. But one listener in particular who wrote into us said that he used to use these binaural beats, and they would be adapted to specific frequencies. Said one day he discovered a frequency that made him have alien abduction experiences, poltergeist activity in the house, demonic encounters, you name it. The whole, shebang starts happening to him. Later on, he would find out that the exact frequency, which he kept to himself, he didn't want to tell us, for fear of anybody else dialing into it. He said it's the same one that Stephen Greer uses for his CE5. So same thing, the same frequency that gave this guy alien abduction experiences, poltergeist activity, sleep paralysis, and demonic encounters is the same thing that Stephen Greer is using to summon in these orbs.
Is that the same thing you were doing to yourself with the fan?
That was an accident. I never meant to do that.
Vicky Joy Anderson actually helped out. He used to sleep with the fan and have.
I still sleep with the fan, but this is a better fan that doesn't binaural beat down me while I'm sleeping, and I don't have sleep paralysis.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean that's something that people don't tend to understand well enough, is the frequencies and vibrations. I mean, God created all of this for a reason, and there are so many things that we're not meant to mess with or understand. When the fallen ones share the sacred knowledge, and that's one of those things I think that was shared, that really wasn't meant to be, because it could be used so dangerously against us, because we are not designed to be able to defend ourselves properly against some of these things. And so that when you look at Stephen Greer, though, to back up to him a little bit, if you read his bio and his information, and I've listened and to him quite a bit just to understand why and what he's doing. He had an encounter where he really invited something in, and then this thing told him, this entity, exactly what and how to do to continue with the CE5 protocol and to create the CE5 protocol. So he does identify a very specific point in time where it sounds to me like he allowed something to inhabit him and kind of take over. And then when you look at him, you can see there's a change, at that point. And so for me, that was kind of the kicker of, you really want to stay away from this. It's dangerous. It's not something we're meant to play with. And calling forth entities that you don't understand, that you're not familiar with, and expecting them to just be benevolent, I mean, that's ridiculous. And then you take that home to your family, your friends, your loved ones, your children. I mean, it's so dangerous. And yet people are just so excited. They gather by the thousands to go out into the desert or the woods or wherever and call upon these entities, these things that they don't know about, that they don't understand. I mean, it's just, you might as well be playing with a Ouija board or a book of spells or tarot cards. It's right up there with all of those things.
I would say it's almost more direct, right? I mean,
it's very much more direct,
to yield consistent results. But I look at this and I feel as though it's all done by design, because, we really have omitted spirituality here in the West. We live in this materialistic paradigm, and I don't think that that's sustainable. I think you could implement that over a people for a time, but eventually they will long for something spiritual. And
well, isn't an interesting push and pull? Like, you've got like they put the blanket over our eyes of spirituality, but then at the same time, these spiritual entities kind of want access to us, so they have to then represent themselves in a way.
Yes, yeah.
So it's like it becomes this weird tug of war of what's going to break. And I feel like we're at the point where human beings are going to have to start dealing with this again.
Well, because we saw it really big in the 90s where it was like atheism. Atheism was huge, tail end of the 80s, all through the 90s, starts to die out in the late 2000s. And now it's not really prevalent, not like it used to be. I mean, I don't meet atheists now. I used to meet them. And
the people that are, you kind of go, come on. Like after COVID, you're like,
you would think.
Yeah, really? Nothing?
But
well, and then
go ahead, Karen.
No, I'm sorry. It's always been that interesting that you've got atheists and agnostics, and it's like if you believe in nothing, it's one thing, but to believe in something and then believe it doesn't exist, aren't you really? There's sort of, to me, there's just a strange paradigm to atheism where it almost negates what they're saying and what they're doing by believing in something and choosing not to believe in it because they believe in it. Does that make sense? What I'm saying?
It's not sustainable. I think
exactly.
you can have that idea for a time, but not a very long time. And I wonder if that time period is around 2 decades. I just realized now we're at the 35-minute mark. So what we're going to do, guys, is we're going to go live exclusively to patreon.com/Nephilim Death Squad. We got to edit out the word COVID now so that the YouTube people, the tyrants over at YouTube, don't take us down. If you want to continue watching this, we're on to you. We know what you're doing. Check us out over at Patreon. If not, give it about a week and this episode will drop in its entirety with certain words omitted so that we don't trip up the algorithm. I look at that time period as one that was necessary. It wasn't sustainable, but you had to get us to the point of, some, I don't know what the percentages are, but some widely accepted version of atheism for the general public. And then from there, it was only a matter of time until people longed for some form of spirituality, because it's obvious if you're paying attention to life in any way, shape, or form that there's a supernatural aspect to things. And I think you can kind of put the blinders on generally up until something happens to you in your life. Then you go looking for answers. And who is prepared to give you those answers? Well,
the New Age religion is quite prepared.
Wiccan is quite prepared.
They actually got in front of it really well with a Christ consciousness kind of thing?
Yeah.
That's an interesting, slippery idea that I didn't fall for it, but like guys like, what's that skinny dude with the long hair? I kind of like him. He's a
Steve Aoki.
No, he's a political commentator, but he was using that, and I was like, oh yeah, cool. Like me. And then
I'm conscious. No. Yeah, I'm conscious of Christ.
Yeah, no, not quite like that.
Not like that, no.
So, and if you to go back to the Garden of Eden, you will be as gods. We're saying it's the same story recycled over and over again as people long for a more closeness to and a better understanding of where do I come from? Who am I? What am I? And that draws them into this opportunity for a greater relationship with God and more spirituality. Then that's when all of the demons come rushing in going, I can give you this. I can offer this. Here, I can give you something so awesome. And it's the same story. I just feel like we're just rebranding the same thing over and over again. And especially with the UFO, UAP stuff that's going on today, it's the same thing. It's just they're giving it new names. They're giving them, flashy new titles and new stories and new backgrounds, but it's still all the same thing. We're still talking about fallen angelic beings who are trying to get people to turn away from God and pledge their allegiance and open up themselves to the darkness and to the fallen side, the fallen realm. I mean, the late Dr. Chuck Missler, as he told LA, Satan's outnumbered 2 to 1. He's building an army. He was not wrong. And that's still happening today. Even though he knows he's not going to win, he's going to take this respite that he has and try to make the most of it and take as many people down as he can with him. And just in a thumbing his nose at the human race. We took this planet from them. They lived here before us. Of course they want to crush us under their feet. Of course they want this back. It's a great place. We live in a wonderful, beautiful planet. For all the difficulties that we all face because it is a fallen world, it is a beautiful place. We're really blessed to have this place that God's blessed us with. And the fact that they want it back, that makes sense to me.
That's something like that idea is something I struggle with as a Christian for a long time. You know how Christians will say we're not of this world, right? So our treasures are in heaven, and I'm just kind of like, but we were given this, and shouldn't we take care of it while we're here, or at least fight for it while we're here? And then you'll get the idea back of no, we're not, don't get involved with that. I'm like, nah, man, my kids are here. Like they'll be here for the next 120 years, I hope.
Right.
If they're and yeah, so there's like this weird thing. I don't know. I go
No,
back and
it's
forth on it.
being a good steward. I mean, there's so many parables that lead you back to that, where they're given the money and the one buries it, hides it, one squanders it away, one makes more of it. And that's it. When you care for something and you allow it to flourish, that is what we're supposed to be doing with everything that God's given us, including this place that we get to live. So we're not trying to be all new age about it. I'm just saying we are stewards of this earth. We are meant to care for it. God did come in the form of Jesus to this earth, to walk on this earth because he loved us so much. The fact that he was here and he put his feet as a human on this soil, on this earth, means something. And that should mean something to everyone who lives here. We should preserve it as long as we can and be grateful for it. Because if we can't be grateful for this, then how are we going to be grateful for what comes next in the millennial kingdom? We're here to learn. And I think this is a part of it. If we can't take care of this, it's like giving a child a bag of flour and pretend that that's a baby for a month. If you can't take care of that, how are you going to take care of a living being? Well, it's the same. I think it's a similar thing. If we can't take care of this, how are we going to be given responsibilities in the millennial kingdom and beyond that? We really have a lot to learn.
Isn't that the idea? It's such a bastardization of that exact idea that you're expressing, where because the New Age movement will be like, we have to ascend, and I'm kind of like, in a way, right?
It's more than just I have to ascend. They think this is a prison. They think this is hell, right? The Gnostics are like, this is hell, and this is a prison planet. And God is the demiurge, and we're trapped here, and we have to escape.
If this is a prison planet, why do these entities seem so like hell bent on, I don't know,
engaging with it?
Why do they want it back so badly if it's so terrible, right?
Yeah,
that's like there are moments where I'm like with my family, and the sun is beating on my face, and the air smells nice, and I'm like, you like take a deep breath, and you're like, you just feel. And
then you fart, right?
No, that's not. No, I don't ruin the moment. I go, man, this is nice. I go, man, this is nice. And then I think about these Gnostic Spurges who are like, this is hell. That's the demiurge. Yaldabaoth is.
I mean, this life is filled with. I was talking to Matt about it. It's filled with so many fleeting moments of brilliance.
Yeah,
but they're like quick and. I mean, sometimes they last a little longer, but they're like, wow, if I could just grab that and put that in a jar.
Oh my God, and drink it. Yeah, I mean, there's so much of it too. Even these moments where I think the Holy Spirit reveals to you some truth that is like just beyond your grasp, and you get hit with this epiphany. You get to connect some sort of neuron in your brain.
We do
bridges
that on
the gap.
Episodes with like LA with I guess Karin now and Vicky all the time. Every time she's been on, we're like, oh yeah. Duh.
And when that happens, it's like there are these little things that make. I just can't look at it as
it's
a
like
prison.
why we do the show, I guess.
Yeah. Oh, 100%. But you were talking about this rebranding, which I think is a great terminology. It's one that we use very often. We'll kind of use the analogy of like, let's say you have a pharmaceutical company that hurts a lot of people. And there's a lot of deaths because of their thing, and they go, man, the amount of lawsuits that maybe we should dissolve the company and just reopen under a new name. You'll get a commercial. It'll be some dude prancing through a field of wheat in the sunshine, and it'll list off a litany of diseases or side effects that you'll get while the guy's spinning his wife in the air. But they'll just have a new name. It'll be a new name, and that's how we deal with it. And so where the public can shake their fist at the old thing that's no longer even active, and they go, look at that, we got them. They went out of business. They just reemerge as something else. They rebrand. And I agree with you, Karin. I think that's very much what these aliens, just to use the term that everybody's going to be familiar with, are doing. Yeah. And one of the things that really shows me that is this hybridization program. And I think it's important to talk about that because a lot of people are like, what's the goal? What are they doing? And it seems that a lot of what they're doing is this attempt to bridge the gap between us and them in some sort of meaningful way.
Well, I think this is a good jumping off point to like get, because I would like to, I've heard your story a bunch of times, but I'd like to hear it again from you. But yeah, this is like your story, right? This is what's been going on.
There's so much to it. So it's kind of like, especially the hybridization program part, because I think that's where there's so much to discuss, and the grays. I mean, those are two areas where I have so much to share and discuss. And So I'm trying to do another book that really focuses down more on those things, because there's just so much information to share. When you look at this program of hybridization of people, this breeding program, they're definitely trying to manipulate our DNA. They're definitely trying to create entities that are passable as humans. You look at the books by Dr. David Jacobs, Walking Among Us, was one of them. And there are entities among us that just look so human, you can't tell them from a non-human entity. And there's just too many reports to ignore. And some of us, when we see them, not just myself, but others, we sense them, we see them, we can tell them right away. And it's scary how many are out there. And it sounds fantastical, but it really isn't that far off base. I mean, we know that chimeric beings are being created today in labs, mixes of animals and humans and things, and clones and those types of things. We have the ability to raise a fetus in an artificial womb. We have that as a society. We can do that now. We know that bovine blood is interchangeable with human blood, and that these entities have been utilizing that for a long time. And oddly enough, I grew up on a cattle farm, so that was readily available where all this was happening to me. And in the middle, I grew up really close to the Serpent Mound, just areas of high strangeness. Sorry, my voice is going. Sorry for that. But yeah, so back to the hybridization program, though, I do think that part of it is, back to, they want this Earth back. And one way to do that is to be just human enough to have the birthright, but just alien enough to not be human. Where do you find that sweet spot? And to lure people away from the truth, to lure people away from the truth of the gospel, to create their own civilization that's not human, to overpopulate and take over. Would that be something they could possibly do? Absolutely. Absolutely. They're already doing it. So they being the non-human alien entities, the fallen angels, this is something they've been doing, since Genesis 3, Genesis 6, since the Garden of Eden, when he said, you can be as gods, and tempted Adam and Eve. It's not some new story, but again, yes, it's just rebranded, and it's the same story. It's the reason for the flood. We know about this in the book of Daniel. I'm all over the place. Sorry. There's just so much to share. Would you rather I just talk about my experiences and kind of get?
Well, I was actually
whatever.
I was actually looking for a post on the topic, because you're saying how they'll lead you to anything but the gospel, and I was just remembering, like, recently within this New Age movement, they have rebranded Jesus Christ in so many different ways. His name is actually this. He's from this planet and star system. No, his name is actually this. He's from this planet and star system. He's an ascended
from Wicked.
He's all kinds. Yeah, he's a bald lady from Wicked. He's a Pleiadian.
Oh, that was a fun one.
He's an ascended master. Like, it's a nonstop plethora. And the reason I think is because, the gospel has been spread so well across the planet. I do believe we're in this period of time where, like, we might within our own lifetime see it reach every corner of the earth. And when that kind of thing is happening, you really have to figure out how to deal with that. I think there was a time where, like, the alien narrative didn't really care about dealing with that so much, but we've been through so many trials and tribulations, at least here in the West and the whole world. I mean, 2020 was wild for everybody, that we've been looking for answers in mass. And if you're earnestly seeking the truth, then you will end up at Jesus Christ. And so I think a lot of it has been realizing that. This phenomenon has been realizing that. And so it's like, it's time to co-opt Jesus, because this isn't going away. So I was reading a post where, like, he's when Jesus returns, he's from the Pleiadian star system. He's going to be wearing a blue jumpsuit and silver boots and all this crazy stuff. So yeah, just to bolster your point, I couldn't find the post, but anything but the gospel.
Oh, that guy blocked us.
Yeah, he blocked us. He didn't like that.
Oh, no. Doesn't that make you think of Matthew 24 differently, too, where it says, many will come in my name saying I am the Christ? It's not necessarily people saying that they are, but saying that, yeah, Jesus is the Christ, but this is who he is. This is how he'll look. This is what he'll be. So they're creating these false Christs. They're creating these false gospels. They're creating these false stories. And so it kind of makes you look at that differently, as because I think one thing about the word is that it's a living word, and it changes with kind of where we are in time. I think it's so amazing how God wrote the word to evolve and move along with us through life, where you look at a verse one way and it really fits, and then everything's changing in the world, and now this verse really fits, but in a whole nother context. And that's how I'm kind of seeing Matthew 24 evolve into now the way people are approaching Jesus. They're saying his name, but the reason calling on Jesus doesn't always work for some people goes right back to permissions. And I wrote about this a while back too, it's like having a washing machine and a dryer and just throwing your clothes on the floor and walking away and coming back and thinking they're going to be washed and dried and folded. It doesn't work that way. You have to open the door. You have to invite him in. You have to make that commitment. And so when you guys mentioned really early in the show, and I wanted to get back to this, why some people say calling on Jesus works, and some people like Tim Alberini say, no, it doesn't. Just because you call on Jesus doesn't mean you're not going to get beheaded in the name of whatever belief system you're a part of. It doesn't mean he didn't hear you, and it doesn't mean he didn't rescue you from that fate. Your physical body may be dead, but if you've called on him, he is going to answer and he's going to hear you. But then there are also the people who say, well, I called on him and nothing happened. Well, did you call on Jesus? Or are you calling on some made up entity? You're not actually seeking Jesus. You're seeking something
Pleiadian Jesus.
Yeah. Did you call upon the ascended master Jesus? Yeah.
We're talking about some letters put together that makes a sound that comes out of our mouth. When you call on Jesus, you are spiritually calling on him. And God's able to see and feel your heart. And it says he knows the desires of our heart. So if you desire to call on Jesus, you don't have to say it out loud. You can say it in your head and your heart. That worked for me many times. Because when you're in a sleep paralysis type position, sometimes that's all you have is to speak with your heart, and that works. So there are people who say, well, calling on Jesus doesn't work. I'm like, who are you really calling on? Did it work? But you just don't understand what God's method is at this point. And you don't understand what his will and his walk for you is. You have to walk through the fire sometimes to be able to show other people how to not get burned. And that is where I take my walk, and the things I've had to go through in my life as well. I can take, and God's going to give me beauty for these ashes. And we're going to take this evil and we're going to turn around and we're going to use it for good. Mm-hmm. And we're going to, laugh in the face of the devil on this one, because he doesn't win. He never wins. It may be for a short time he's leading the pack, but he does not win. And we know this. And as long as we keep that in our heart, we're going to be okay. So I wanted to bring that point home for your listeners who might have been wondering about that, why calling on Jesus works sometimes and sometimes it doesn't, because I think it's really important to understand that point.
Well, that's like the story of with the sons of Sceva, right?
Oh, where they're like...
they get beat up, they're like, we come in the name of Paul, who knew Jesus, and they're like, I don't know you, and then you're out of here.
They're exactly. Like, no, that Jesus, the one that Paul was in.
The guy with the the silver boots. Like,
no. Silver boots. Well, we actually, once again, I don't think it's a malice thing or a nefarious thing to have a disagreement in things like this. Is we're all kind of stumbling around. Mm-hmm. But we had Tim Alberino on the show, and it actually became quite contentious in a lot of ways. One of them was that aspect of it doesn't always work when you call on Jesus, and mm-hmm. that was
we had no business like challenging.
No, we
like
had
that.
no.
We just started the show,
and we did get him to concede.
And we're like, I don't like what you said.
Yeah. Well. So he came on, and we did get him to concede, and I do think he conceded because he wanted us to shut up, which is fair. But a lot of what we were talking about was, oftentimes these grays will get labeled as demonic, which I think mm-hmm. is really, I've come to terms with it as being a descriptive for this thing that is in alignment with the adversary, that is not of the spirit of God, that is in an adversarial relationship with us on the other side of the playing field, as it were. And so... he goes, well, I don't think there's any precedent for that. And I'm going, that's wild in my eyes, because you're a guy who has seen what we've seen plus some, and you've not come to that conclusion.
Yeah, like the first half of your book
is birthright. I mean, it's birthright. It's
Right.
talk. So this whole thing became really strange to us, and then honestly, Karin, I believe it was you that has this story that really drove a point home for me, and it was when you were talking about being on the craft and seeing these bodies of the Greys piled up, almost like out of commission, just hanging out, smelling bad. I remember you said, which is interesting because that smell.
Sulfur and dead animals and urine and excrement. Yeah.
Yeah, I love this story. I've heard it so many times, but only from David.
Yeah. We have to. And please, I'm gonna say this, and then I want to get into your experiences because there's nothing like firsthand accounts from people and testimony that I think that sort of thing is very important. But you're describing these things as out of commission, not occupied, not functioning at the moment. And then because of it, not smelling great, because I don't think they were too worried about washing them. And so we said to him, well, what about the potentiality that this is some sort of biomechanical technology that is there to carry out an automaton sort of a job, may even be able to be possessed by a spirit temporarily in some limited aspect in order to engage with the physical realm, because these disembodied spirits and such can't do that. But just the idea that these are not associated with the demonic realm seems, and basically he just said, yeah, you know what? I never thought about that. And I swear to you, I think
in his book, he really does. He says that they can't be demonic because they don't cuss and scream and rape and pillage and kill. And this is where he and I really, really go far apart. And I've offered to sit down and debate this with him and talk with him. He doesn't have any interest. I'm nobody, and I'm okay with that, because that's not my ministry. My ministry.
I want you to talk about this, Karin, but I want to say right here,
we're gonna kill Timothy.
No, no, Timothy Alvarino. She's like, oh my God, what show am I on?
He really has a great ministry. He does.
No, he's fantastic. However, he sat down with us. What was it? Episode 14?
I don't know.
7? Very early. We're I don't know how many episodes in, hundreds of episodes in now. He sat down with us very early. He didn't perceive us as I don't want to say a threat, but Karin, you have firsthand experience, and you have the scripture to back it up, and you have the body of research and the communications that you're having with the team that you've developed.
It's extremely important to clear this up for the people, because this guy is going on the Daily Wire and other
I'm saying he didn't want the smoke from Karin Wilkinson.
Talking to people about these things. We got to know what is actually going on so we can battle this, because there's already enough smoke in the room.
Yeah, that's true. Well, and I feel very strongly about this. Somebody challenged me on another podcast probably about a year or so ago, and challenged why I don't agree or believe the way he does. And I said, well, how many Greys has Timothy Alvarino been in contact with directly? Because I want to talk about that. And, and I'm not trying to say that to be contentious or to start a fight or anything like that. It's just, he has valid points, and I have no problem with the points he's making. I think they make a lot of sense. However, I also have valid points based on my experience. And so that's what I have to go on. My experience and my knowledge of the biblical narrative. He may know the Bible much better than I do. I'm not a Bible scholar, but I do study the Bible. It's part of my daily life. It's part of my spiritual walk, and having researched this and having utilized my own experience, my take on these entities is that they are a biological construct created by the fallen angelic beings to carry out the things that they need to do here in our atmosphere, in our presence, so they can do so without direct permission. Because it's not a true entity. It's a thing. It's like sending in a bomb robot to go disarm a bomb. It's not a human. It's not an angelic being. It's kind of a nothing. Now, the other thing that we have is these suits are made very limited. The mouths don't open. The eyes aren't like real eyes. They look like a black screen. There's no pupil. There's nothing moving around in them. There are other Greys I have witnessed that look very different. different sizes, different shapes. They're taller, their eyes move, their mouths move. But these little grays that all look the same, they're very cookie cutter. Their eyes don't move. They don't have any discernible facial features. Their faces don't appear to move. They don't have any discernible organs like male, female. They look just like a really tightly knit fabric almost, but almost like a cross between fabric and skin. I don't know what they're made of. My guess is it's some sort of a biologic construct, though, because it smells so bad. And I think they utilize the bovine.
Like bare minimum to function is what they're
Absolutely
designed for.
Yeah, I absolutely. Because there are reports, if you go into some of the reports and some of the leaks that have come out over the last 50, 60 years, people like General Corso and such, when they talk about the anatomy of these entities, they literally just look like they're designed to carry no food. They have no reproductive organs, literally designed to just withstand changes in various atmospheric pressures and to be able to sustain, going in between different temperature extremes, atmospheric extremes, etc., almost like a scuba gear would provide. And we're a scuba diving family, so it made a lot of sense to me when I read that, because I'm like, exactly, that's exactly what it seemed like. It's just, and to see them empty, to see them lifeless, and even when they were moving, when they were coming to get me, even as a small child, they didn't seem to have any life. I just felt evil. It felt a presence. It felt evil, and this is why I think that, when a Nephilim, when it passes away, the spirit of a departed Nephilim is what we call a demon. This is where we get the demonic entities from. This is where we get that terminology, which often gets mixed up with devil, demon, all these different things. But we know from biblical text, and we know from the extra canonical books, that a demonic entity is the disembodied spirit of a Nephilim. It says, I think in the book of Enoch, you're neither heavenly nor of earthbound, so they don't have a place to go. And then when you look at when Jesus is casting the demons out of the man, they ask, put us into the pigs. They wanted to be in something, because they wanted to inhabit something, indwell something. They've got nowhere to be if they're just kind of the ether, the spiritual ether that we hear so much about. They can't really do anything. They wanted to be in something, in the pigs, which then went into the water. Now that's a whole nother thing to get into, but
can we put a pin in that though, because that is
I already did, and she's touched on it twice. We're going to end up going there.
Yeah, in the water, because if they jump into the water, I assume they die. Then where do they go from there? They're in the water,
and I just think that has a lot to do with what's going on under the water and submerged in the water. There's so much to do with water. When it says there'll be no more seas, I think that so much is connected into the water, and then the water and life, and blood is in the life. That's a whole nother long. I know we don't have time to go down that road today, and I don't think my voice will take me down that road today. But so I want to go back to the Greys real quick though. So I believe that these entities are inhabited by demonic entities, and this is where Timothy Alberino and I really part ways on this. He says they can't be inhabited by demons because they don't rape, they don't pillage, they don't cuss, they don't curse, they don't scream, they don't do all the things that we know demons to do. Well, who says these are the only things that demons do? Who defined what demonic actions are? Because from what I know, they're deceptive, and they can come as angels of light, or they're going to show as being as deceptive as possible, possibly coming across as lovely, wonderful. Look at all the most horrible serial killers and things like that people get addicted to watching on TV. I think some of the reason that we all get pulled into those things is that we're fascinated by the fact that they come across one way, but they're really another. And
can I say, Karin, on that topic too, it's like they'll often present themselves as like the spirit of a sweet 10-year-old child. You know what I mean? Like it's like this house is haunted by the spirit of a sweet little girl.
Well, we're doing that Bible study.
Yeah. They do that a lot. Well, the other thing I wanted to say too is, wouldn't the spirit be limited by the flesh? So if they're inhabiting an automaton that can't speak, doesn't have the ability to do so, can't reproduce,
Yeah.
any of these things, then it's limited. It's
Right.
like whatever
perfect
video
health.
game you play, whatever your
Right.
character can do is what you can do.
Exactly. And so I think we're made a little lower than the angelic beings, right? The angels tells us in the Bible this. So if this is a cross between a human and an angelic being, then it's also a little lower than the angelic being. So they're going to be able to lord over these demonic entities, and they can, I wonder, this is theory, conjecture on my part, do they say, okay, you're going to inhabit and occupy this suit, you're going to do this job for this amount of time, then we're going to let you go and live in this house or poltergeist this place, or take the next person who calls or summons a demon or what have you. So are they making agreements and covenants with these entities, having them hang out in these little gray suits for a while? They're just doing dirty work. I mean, they're just literally plucking people out of their homes and moving on to the next. They are not doing, I never saw these entities do anything significant when I was at whatever destination I was taken to. So when I would be taken, sometimes I would just wake up on an exam table and there would be entities doing things to me, with needles or machines I didn't understand, or, just all kinds of different medical procedures that no one ever explained to me what they were doing. It was terrifying, especially as a small child. But the grays, the entities I saw there, their eyes moved, their faces had expressions. They spoke to me the same way these little grays did, just mind speak, but it was different. It wasn't so matter of fact. These little cookie cutter grays, everything just seems so robotic in nature, but not robotic as if there wasn't something really in there. I mean, could they be driven by AI? Sure. Could they be housing even another smaller entity? Possibly, but I really think it's just demonic entities in there. And then when I was taken, those other grays were very lifelike, very different. They didn't all look the same. They all look different. And they're like the ones that look like insect, like they call mantis type. There were so many crossovers of, this gray looks more like an insect, and this insectolan looks more like a gray or more reptilian. You know what I mean? There was so much blur between the lines of these different types of entities. It's hard to say how many types there were. So I just grouped them into the insectolan types, the grays, the Nordic, and the reptilian. But they really did blur across all four of those. And some looked more like one and some looked more like another. But there were features in them that crossed across all four of those different types that I've mentioned. But again, back to those grays, the little cookie cutter grays, I really think they're just disposable. I think they utilize the bovine blood to refresh those suits. And I think when they get old, that's when you smell that nastiness. I've been around dead animals, dead cattle. That's a really similar smell to what they're like. So much of it just made sense to me. I never thought anyone would ever think any differently about the grays until I heard Tim's analysis on them. And I was shocked that he would think that, someone else would think differently about them. But
I mean, I don't have an issue with thinking differently, right? That's not
right,
it.
yeah.
It's that he seems adamant.
I have an issue with it.
Well, I mean, it's if you have a different theory or something, that's one thing. But to go like, no, this is what it is, that seems strange.
That's my issue. My issue is,
I'm sorry. Yeah, I don't think I have the only opinion or the only theory on it. And that's why I said I was shocked that someone else would have something different to say about it or a different way of thinking about them. But I'm totally open to that because there could be different kinds, there could be different ones. And maybe he did encounter something and it was very different from these. Who's to say? I mean, all I can talk about is what I have experienced personally. The rest of it, that's.
I mean, whatever. I guess I'll burn a bridge here if this show ever gets big enough to watch it. But they're gatekeeping like extra canonical text, in my opinion, because we know a bunch of people who have been on that show who, I mean, he wrote the foreword for their their Book of Enoch translation or like, you know, commentary. And if
Mhm.
they come with a different perspective of that specific phenomenon,
Mhm.
the episode's not aired. That's not how I operate.
Or you
That's
never
true,
get asked back.
That's true.
or
Both
they
of
just
those things
don't.
are true.
Yeah, they just don't put it on. So it was like, hey, yeah,
You
these
disappear.
guys follow me on Twitter, so hit me up because
Look.
I got a little bit of a problem with that. Like, it needs to be spoken about. This is something that's happening,
Exactly.
and it's a problem. But I did want to backtrack to what you said.
Well, hold on. I just want to
Yeah,
add to what you're saying. People who think that that is like maybe an inappropriate thing to do or otherwise, this thing is coming fast.
everything I do is inappropriate.
Well, no.
So we
I
might as
mean,
well.
I'm saying this narrative is coming fast.
Mhm.
And it's incredibly important that this discussion be had. And, you know, I believe that, I'm not saying I have all the information, but I believe that I'm operating within the truth. I'm being honest.
Yeah.
And so if I'm being honest, then I have to say this thing and we have to draw attention to that. And so, yeah, if you do believe that this is a problem, that there does seem to be some aspect of some Hollywood, mind controlled sort of deception being released in the form of disclosure, and that a lot of people are going to fall for some really horrifying things. Well, then you're obligated then to speak the truth and say what you believe and where your information has led you.
Yeah,
So
we just won't get on any really nice big shows.
That's all.
Whatever. But you had
I'd
mentioned
rather share the
that-
truth than be popular, and I'd rather give all the glory to God than have glory given to me. So,
amen.
if it's not a popular opinion, I'm sorry, you don't have to listen. But I can't buy into a false narrative. I can only share what I know to be true for me, and support those I know that are sharing the truth and sharing the true gospel. And beyond that, I just wish everyone well, but I can't be a part of that.
Yeah, listen, like I said, I don't care either. I'm on the side of the guy who created the universe.
Yeah.
So everything else falls where it may. But you had mentioned that these small grays have like a rudimentary version of telepathy or their language. Can you explain
Yeah.
that a little better? Because that's like something that really interests us.
Yeah, it was what I call mind speak. A lot of people like to call it telepathy, but I think of telepathy as more reading someone's thoughts without their permission almost. This was just a really direct communication. It felt as direct as just speaking with another person, but instead of using words like this, it was just thinking the words to each other. And they didn't ever, sometimes they would just communicate like a thought or feeling like, calm down, it's okay, don't worry, be quiet, go to sleep, things like that. Because there are nuances to it that's very different than actual speech, so it's hard to describe. But they were always very limited. I mean, there were never any conversations. There was never anything that seemed conversational to me. It was always very specific, very straightforward, very task oriented, as opposed to when I was in the facilities where I was taken, and I really believe it was underground facilities, because of the elevators that we would get in, and because I don't have a lot of ship memories of being like up, hanging out on ships like that. It was always mostly, not always, in what seemed to be underground facilities. There were no windows, and it was just seemed to be, excuse me. Those were more conversational. Those were more, why am I here? What's going on? Don't worry, you're going to be fine. We're going to take you back to your parents. This is all, you're helping us. This is important.
But it was still telepathic?
Yes, it was still, there were noises. I mean, they were different. There were definitely audible things going on as well, but they weren't speech patterns like ours, nothing recognizable in that respect. If they were communicating with audible language to each other, I don't know, because there were different like clicks and chirps and sounds and things that didn't register to me as recognizable, but were very unsettling to hear.
That's interesting because if you think about animals and the way they engage in, like, you think of like a bat, which is emitting a sonar, which is it's a frequency, right? Because I just look at these things through the lens of frequency, and I know obviously speech is vibration and frequency, but chirps and clicks and things like that, it's a very rudimentary version of communication, but it is rooted specifically in just frequency.
True. And there was always like this low vibrational hum when I would be taken, when I would go through a window or a ceiling or a door or a wall or what have you. That was accompanied by this frequency change, this really low vibrational hum that it felt like my body was just separating into a bazillion little pieces. It's so hard to find a way to describe it that makes sense because it's not
disassociation.
Well, I mean, not just disassociation, but the way that you can emit a certain frequency that would cause glass to shatter is probably within the realm of possibility that you can create a frequency that would cause things to separate on a molecular level in order to pass through a solid object.
It's like they can manipulate space, time, energy, and matter in ways that we don't understand yet, or that we weren't intended to understand. They have understanding of things that's so far beyond us. And then at the time when I was being taken, I would be taken to these rooms where the whole room was like a screen, like a theater screen. But we didn't have anything like that when I was little. Or, so now to see these things, touch screens that are invisible until you touch them, or rooms that are all screens. Well, yeah, we have that now, but we didn't when I was little, but those were the things I was encountering. That the sideways elevators I would talk about that just moved so fast and didn't make any sound. And I couldn't equate that to a high-speed train or an automobile, because everything in my life in the 1960s and 70s made a lot of noise when it moved. Cars were loud, trains were loud, buses were loud, whatever. So it didn't equate to me as being some kind of a mode of transport like a train or something, which it probably was. So they were so far advanced at that point, and still are today. So it's so hard to understand how and what they do when it doesn't fit into our knowledge of physics and science. And I don't have
Karin,
a good way to explain it.
So, okay, this is something that's been developing a lot in the UAP UFO space as far as the narrative goes. Maybe it's better to start with kind of the Hopi lore of the ant people, which the way they describe them look very much like Greys. I don't know if it's the tall Greys or if it's these short automatons, but they maintain that they're subterranean, that these are ant people that live within the earth. And then it's interesting, before we were talking about water, and just on that note of the pigs going in the water, right? It's like there's that parasite that causes its victim to jump in the water because it
drown itself.
Yeah, it drowns itself, and then it births. It's like a water. I always think about that because I think there's a real correlation between parasites and demonic possession, almost like they're some sort of a conduit for negative spiritual energy. But but that pattern of the water, now the UAP community seems to be comfortable with this idea that they are not coming from outer space, although there's still a big effort to push that in that direction. You have the 3-Eye Atlas thing that's happening right now, and they're really trying to get us to believe that this is some sort of craft and it's coming from space, but observation is showing that it's coming from the oceans. And so in your experience, you're describing elevators, you've said you feel as though do you think that this is happening exclusively within the earth, subterranean, underground, or is there room for this outer space conversation?
I think there's room for the outer space conversation, only because I think that they can utilize the skies and the atmospheres as much as they're capable of, and that it makes as much sense to come in and out of a portal in the sky as it would in and out of a portal under the water. I mean, depending on the time of day and where you are, you're not going to be seen at night necessarily, or, so utilizing these things as a form of cover makes sense. And, there's so much vastness under our feet that we're not aware of, we don't think about. I mean, the oceans found under Florida and that area, the the thousands of miles of undiscovered, not undiscovered,
Untapped.
tapped. Yeah, they're discovering more and more inner oceans within the Earth's core, down further and further, more levels of water, levels of ocean. We know from the flood of Noah, the water comes up, not all down. Most of it comes from below the surface. So I think it makes sense that they would utilize both. We don't know much about the oceans, and we don't know much about the upper areas of our atmospheres and the sky either. So there's so much that limits us. We're really, really limited. I mean, understanding scuba diving, we can only go about 100 feet before we get into some real danger that messes with our thoughts and messes with your brain and messes with your body, and becomes deadly. So there are so many places for them to set up shop and to hang out and to hide. I mean, we know what we know from school, which what we were taught was someone's idea of what might be what makes up the Earth. But nobody knows. We've only gone down like 15 miles, and that was with this very small cylindrical drill. Nobody knows what's under our feet. But some of us who've experienced things underground know that there are vast networks down there. I mean, the places I went were huge, bigger than football fields, stadiums, and airports, and, my schools and all those things put together. They were just massive. And, if that was on Earth level, we would see it, maybe. There's also a lot of the Earth we don't know. We haven't explored either. Unexplored, thank you. That's the word I was looking for. It was such a silly word. But yeah, unexplored depths of the ocean, unexplored places on the Earth, unexplored areas of space. There's too many places they could be. And I think it makes sense they could utilize both, because the variances in pressure in outer space and in the water, we're just talking about pressure variations and things. So once you've managed to deal with that in space or underwater, it's 6 to 1, half to dozen of the other.
We were actually doing a documentary. I mean, it's been kind of
backburnered.
But we've been doing building a lot of stuff. But there's a family in Sarasota that discovered like a deep underground spring, and their husband has been arrested and targeted by companies like Nestle, and it's a debacle. Yeah, but we went out there, we saw the water, they tapped the well for us, and it's like it's a extremely deep well, but there's a lot of controversy around it because of what it is. It's like it's high in alkaline, right? In alkalinity and other kind of minerals.
High in mineral, so low in acidity, high in mineral count. And the guy who is dealing with it specifically is a very intelligent guy. His name is Joe Gilberti. He's an engineer, and he doesn't think that it's as simple as like the aqueducts or something. He thinks that this is like an ocean.
Well, they were able to look. It's an ocean, and it extends to like, I don't know. He said like Alabama or something like that. It's tremendous.
Yeah.
Yes, and that's the one I was talking about when I was mentioning the one they found in Florida, and I had it here somewhere. I want to ask you guys about that.
We have some water in our house, actually.
I have a jug of it. Yeah, I haven't touched it yet, but
really?
It's yeah. I mean, it's something that we've been working with. It's just we've discovered we're not documentarians, so it's a massive undertaking.
It's very expensive to do, and it's just a lot of work. But we have so much footage, and we want to tell this story. It's just like, I don't know where to begin, but
in the descriptions of all of our shows, if anybody is interested in helping Joe Gilberti, who's still being prosecuted, I think he just got sentenced to 15 years for trying to blow the whistle on this. There's links and everything in our descriptions. But
it's funny too, because we had asked Joe. We got on a phone call with him from prison.
Oh yeah,
and I just blurted out, "Hey, do you think that this water has anything to do with like the flood in Noah?" And he was like, "I don't know what you're talking about, dude. But this is good drinking water. We got to get this to the people." And I was like, just forget it. I'm a crazy person.
Great guy, though. I mean, he's more concerned with getting the water to the people. It seems like they're causing artificial scarcity of water and everything.
They're giving people crappy water.
That too. Well, no, and that is The other one was that there's an interior ocean 400 miles under our feet. So that's definitely not what he tapped into. But it creates a fourth form of water. Not, it's not steam, not vapor, not ice,
Plasma?
not liquid, ice, vapor. It's a fourth form, right? It's ringwoodite is the gem that it creates, and
Oh, that's interesting.
I know I need to write about this and do more research and get with you guys on this one, because this is really interesting, and I've just started researching what they're finding about this. But it's a different process of dehydration and melting, and it was accidentally discovered, and there's not a lot out there about it. You kind of have to search for it, but it's really, really interesting. But it just goes back to my point of, we're given this really specific bottled up narrative of, here's where we live, here's what's under our feet, it's always been this way, it will always be this way, don't worry about it, now move along, citizen, go on with your day. Yeah. And that's just not true. I like that we have what's his name, he says we have the historical amnesia. We don't remember
Randall
our
Carlson.
No, he did
Hancock.
Graham Hancock.
Yeah, Graham Hancock, when he says we have this, he is just so close to the truth. He's just missing one important part. But
the most important part,
in my opinion, right? But
yes.
For the rest of it, wow, it's really good information, and I 100% agree with them. We have this historical amnesia where we're because we've been given a very specific set, and all we know is what we're taught. And then spiritually, we have to allow God to fill in the rest, and that takes faith. And it takes work, and it takes perseverance on our part. But for most people, it's just easier to say, I'm just going to go along with this because I've got a job to do, I've got bills to pay, I've got kids to raise, I've got mouths to feed. I get that. But we have to be open to the rest of it, because there are so many people we could help by understanding the truth better. And I think that's what drives people like LA and Vicky and myself, is we've got to push harder, we've got to find the truth, we've got to share more truth, we've got to help more people. Because if you're sitting and you're not moving forward and you're just on the fence, I don't want to be that. I don't want to be that. And I don't want to watch people not have the blessings of eternal life because I didn't get off my butt and share the truth. And sometimes these are the facts that people need that change their mind about things and help them see that light and see that truth. And I just think it's important. Sorry.
No.
It's actually, it's kind of alarming too, that I know we talk about like, oh, we're in the end times, but my mom's been saying that for quite a while. But if you're telling me that you were seeing technology that is in existence today, but back then, I'm like, how much?
Well, that's the idea.
Why are we catching up?
That's where people think we got fiber optics from and touchscreens and everything. I mean, that's
why we're catching up. Yeah, from the crashes and from what they gave us and what they traded us and things like that. Do we have it all? No. And do we even understand what we have? No. I mean, so much of this hasn't even been reverse engineered properly because they don't understand it.
Yeah. I think even the crashes were a way of giving us a thing.
Oh, 100%. I'm working on another chapter for the next book, that why do they crash? Because I've got some really specific theories on that. And because I just think that's so important for people to understand, why there are thousands and thousands of crashes and reports. People just don't realize how many, and more significant than Roswell and before Roswell. Although Roswell's one we all gravitate towards because we've been given some specific information. But why? Why do we have that information? Why that one? What about what happened before there? What, that whole Trinity area where Roswell is? Oh my goodness, there's so much that's happened just there. So I'm just so excited to share all the rest of this information, because there's so much more out there. And working with people like LA and Vicky, we get this opportunity to really dig into these subjects and research them and find out just so much stuff that the public hasn't been made privy to, that hasn't been shared properly, or shared well enough, or shared at all. So there's it. And I think this information will help people understand who we are, where we come from, what kind of a battle we're fighting, and what kind of a future we're facing. Do I think we're in the end times? I think we could be, but I think it can get a lot worse before we're really in the end times, because I don't know about y'all, but I think most of us have it pretty good. We still have clean water and warm beds and clean clothes and shopping malls and fast food and cars and air conditioning and all these crazy things. End times to me says you don't have any of that. So for me, I don't see it as imminent. But then again, we're told to be like the watcher at the gate and be ready at any moment. So could it be tomorrow? Sure. Ellie likes to say next Tuesday. But for me, I think it's going to get a lot worse. And I think we're going to be really, I hope we get to be a part of that and really help people through that, because I think it's going to be a very, very trying time before we are taken off of this earth, for sure.
Well, our friend Matt that owns a coffee shop, he says all the time that this is actually, he thinks this is the worst time to be alive and to be a Christian, because Christianity is it's almost like welcome in America, but not quite. Like, we get this weird watered down version of Christianity where we go to church, but like when you look at it, you kind of say, oh, these people don't really know what's going on. And they're very comfortable where they're at, with the fast food, with the convenience, with with the Netflix, with the electricity.
Watered down version of Christianity.
Yeah,
we can walk around with a Bible in our hand and not be beheaded and not be persecuted. We don't have to hide in someone's basement to study together.
That's true. And not only that, but we could do a show like this where we're broadcasting openly, and then nobody's coming to take my skin off. I really like my skin.
Yeah, but this show is this is dangerous, what we're talking about. Reading a Bible casually. Like, I've read the Bible. I grew up in the church. I read it casually my whole life. No offense, meant nothing to me.
It doesn't until the Spirit helps you, right? Yeah. It doesn't mean the same thing.
That pressure that's applied of where you actually start to feel like, whoa, I have to understand this. There's something happening, like there's something moving. That's when you read that and you go, wow, I feel like I've never read this book before, because now I'm understanding it in a different light. So it's like that delusion of the safety and all that it is almost more dangerous.
That's true. They will say peace and safety, right? And then you look at the book of Daniel. We are like in the in the days of Noah. Men are going to and fro across the face of the earth. Their knowledge is increasing. I mean, look at the last 150 years to go from a horse and a buggy to supersonic jets and these big triangle planes that look like UFOs in the air. I mean, we've gone so far, in such a short period of time, because we had help. And what happened in the days of Noah? They fell, but they had been on the earth for quite a long time. And I think in the days of Noah, my opinion, and I write about this in this first book, things were a lot more sophisticated than people give it credit for. I don't think they were living in huts and wearing, sandals and sackcloth and linen and whatever. I think that they were as sophisticated, if not more so, than we are. I think they were very, a very sophisticated society. And when it gets to that point, you're talking, Tower of Babel type level, that's when God brought in the deluge, the flood. And I agree with Vicky. Was that the first flood? Who knows? There could have been so many. I mean, how many ash lines have they found when they start digging down? Because the first one wasn't very far down. The first one that kind of proves the last flood, about 5,000-6,000 years ago. But how many? We don't even, we're just beginning to scratch the surface of understanding what could have happened in the past. Again, historical amnesia. We don't know. And we have enough to know what we need to know. But I think it was a very sophisticated time. I think they were technologically superior probably to where we are now. And I think we're getting to that point again. And I do think that's where the danger lies. We get to this point, we start getting so much information from the fallen ones and want to be as gods. And that's when God's going to come in and say, nope, I'm coming back in. We're going to have that moment again where he comes back and just fixes it again. Or, but at what point are we at the end? At what point has the fullness come to pass? That's God's choice, right?
I want to, well, first off, I want to respect your time. We're coming up on the hour and a half mark, but I want to talk about, before we get out of here, what you guys are working on. I said at the top of the show, I'm a big fan of the sort of information that the three of you are putting out. We got to talk to LA again soon.
Yeah.
Last time he yelled at me last time, but yeah, we'll talk about it. I said
He
a naughty
scolded him.
word.
He said I don't remember what the word was, but he said something,
Uh-oh.
and
It wasn't that bad.
It wasn't that bad, but
But
LA reprimanded
like-
you, and then he gave thumbs up, and
Yeah.
fireworks went off on his
Yeah.
Skype because for some reason that was the gesture that made fireworks happen. But we had a blast talking to him. We have to have him. We have to have him back on soon. But you guys are very busy. You're always going everywhere. There's always these conferences and speaking engagements and everything. What's on the horizon? Is there anything specific that I know you're talking about books that you're working on and information you want to put out? What can we expect from that corner of I guess the LA verse?
Well, we just finished the last conference of the year because now we're in what's called fire season in California for them. So they stay home this time of year just to keep an eye on things. Next year, I know we'll be doing the Prophecy Watchers conferences, and there's one in Colorado, and there's going to be another one in Branson again. I don't have a full schedule yet for next year, but I'm working on my next book. I know Vicky's doing the same, and LA is doing the same. So you'll see something coming out from all three of us next year, God willing, and we're still here. So we're all looking forward to that. We're all in completely different directions with them, so it should be really exciting and fun. I'm looking forward to reading theirs. So that's what's next for all of us. I mean, it's time for new books. It's time for new information. And there's just been so much going on. There's just a plethora of information to share. So we're working on that, and we're just steadily plugging away at continuing to write for LA's newsletter, which is just such a great wealth of information. He's got people like Mondo Gonzalez and writing for him, and so many amazing people. If you haven't checked it out, you can get to it at his website. It's such a wonderful reference. And Vicki and I really enjoy trying to coordinate. She and I are both writing about DNA this month. So we try to get our messages together sometimes and coordinate what we're writing about. And that's a lot of fun too. But that's pretty much it. That's what we have right now. I don't have a lot of next year's schedule yet, but keep an eye out on our websites and we'll have it posted when we do.
Well, I would love to if you guys are ever in the area, get you over here, because at this studio / coffee shop
/ casino.
No, it's not a casino, but it is / Christian library. And there's a big there's no casino, but we do have this big this long table with a big screen TV, and they do all kinds of talks here all the time. And we have a lot of LA's works actually sitting on the shelf in the back here. It would be great if you guys were ever in the area doing something bigger. If we can convince you to swing by this meek little shop and do something here, I think we could really bring people out and do something interesting. And then of course, we have the studio here. So how fun would that be to have?
Oh, that would be awesome. We get to Florida a lot, and we all just came back from there last month. We were out there for a week, but for a vacation time, much needed vacation, not work, but once a year we try to take a little break. So but we love that area. We love Florida. So we will absolutely make it a point to make it your way. That sounds like a lot of fun.
Karin, we have one last question before we shut this out. I didn't forget.
Oh,
this is something that we love to ask all of our guests, and it always yields a kind of fascinating answers. Not necessarily in this episode, but especially in your works and your team and just everything that you're doing. Are you having fun?
Oh, I'm having the best time. There are a lot of challenges, and there are heartbreaks and heartaches and cathartic moments. But on the flip side of that, I've met the most amazing people. I have made the best friends of my life. I have met the most amazing, wonderful people I consider family now. And I've met so many amazing people like you guys. And that's my favorite thing, and so I am having a blast. I'm having an absolute ball. Yes.
Good to hear it. We find that people that are doing work that they feel is important and they feel convicted to do.
Work that they're supposed to be doing.
That's it.
Yeah.
Work that they're supposed to be doing. It takes a lot to figure out what we're supposed to be doing. And I think that's the overwhelming theme, given a few exceptions. But when we ask people on this show, no matter how intense the subject matter is, they're having fun. If it's what you're
we have our moments. For sure. There are intense moments, and there are a lot of tears and a lot of frustration. and a lot of challenges that we all face. But when you're doing it with people you love and you trust, and then you get to meet people like you guys who are just doing so much good in the world, it makes it so much easier. And it's a pleasure to be able to serve God and his kingdom in such a way that helps people, and you don't make any money doing this, but you definitely make a lot of friends and lifelong connections, and that makes it all worth it.
Well, you should be making some money. Somebody go buy your book. There's a website at the bottom. Karin Wilkinson, author. Go buy her book, read about it, learn about it, so that way maybe you won't get abducted, or
at least you'll be armed with some information, and you won't be lost when you have some horrifying experience, and you can.
That's one thing that this show has. Like, we do sorry, I will let you go after this, but we do a segment where we get the emails of our listeners, and they tell us, and these people have
their testimonies. Yeah,
they have like the same experiences over and over. So we're trying to create a library. Like Tony Merkel does a great job with the confessionals of create this repository of information of things that happen, how they're dealt with, where they come from,
what they are,
how to address it. And it's but so many stories that are similar, and I think that our listeners get a lot of value from people like you and the books that you write, the articles that you write. So go pick up her book. Don't be like that.
Oh yeah. And hey, I am happy to send you guys some of my books and some other ones too, from mine and LA's and Vicky's, that you can add to the library
that
there.
Would be great. We have it.
You can buy and get a copy. I'll just send you some that you can have.
This is why Vicky's on the shelf over here. They come out at night. Anything, please send us whatever you'd like. We'll take it.
It's gonna fall if I pick it up.
I've got an extra one of these. That's the 10-disc set. I'll get one of those guys out to you. So I happen to have an extra one here. Don't tell anybody.
Awesome.
Don't tell LA, because they'll get mad.
I'm not going to tell anybody. This isn't going to air to the public.
No, we'll pay. we'll pay for it.
Email me. We'll get this going. I'll send you guys a little care package of stuff for your library. Because I think it's great. People need to have access to these things. We don't want there to be a barrier to access to things like this. And I would give my book away rather than sell if I could. If it was free to print these things and do these things, I would. I would just do that. It just isn't, unfortunately. But I will help wherever I can. And we'll get some stuff to you guys for sure. That would be great.
Well, we're going to get stuff. The rest of you guys got to go to KarinWilkinsonAuthor.com. Stop
it. Go visit you guys live in your studio there at the coffee shop, and it'll be there and people can read it while they sit there and hang out, right?
That is true. We get a lot of people that come in here, fans of the show, and they do a lot of reading. They hang out. Just ask us. We got a bunch of cool stuff hanging out.
I don't know
if
they know how to read, but they sit here
that's true.
And they look at the book.
They do look at the book. I don't know if but we have all kinds of fun stuff in here. So if you guys are listening that you make trips to the shop, don't be afraid to ask us, but you got to give it back. All right.
Yeah. Well, we'll make sure we get a couple extra there for people, and that way if somebody needs it, they'll have it, and you should have access to these things if people are trying to find them. So it's such a pleasure to be with you guys today. I feel like I was all over the place with information. If anyone has any questions, just send me a message through my website, not through social media, because I cannot monitor those mailboxes, but I do monitor the one through my website. So just send me an email and I will graciously get back to you as soon as I can.
All right, Karin, promise we'll talk again.
Absolutely. I'm looking forward to it. I hope we'll see you in
person. Put her on the spot. That's not fair.
Absolutely. You guys are easy. This is wonderful. Thank you. God bless you guys. Have a blessed day.
Thank you for the prayer.
God bless you. Yeah, thank you for starting the show that way. It's always
we need to do that more. We just forget we're always scrambling. But yes, thank you for that. It means a lot. All right. You have a good day, Karin. We'll see you soon. Okay. Guys, don't forget to obey, submit, and comply. We'll see you tomorrow. Bye.